Hi everyone, welcome to Talk Back. It's September 17th, 2025, and we're in the middle of our shows involving the local elections that are coming up, I think, on Tuesday, November 4th. And we've been doing a series of some of the candidates in Colchester for the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen. And today I'm really happy to introduce two people who are wearing blue like I am. Perfect combinations, who are running for the Board of Education. There's Nancy Nelson. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi. And Gussie Gilberti.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And both of these women have experienced long careers in education, and they still want to come back into the fray and give of their time, their knowledge, their expertise, their ideas to help the town. I mean, that's pretty commendable in an age where it's not easy to be a public servant now, right? Okay,
Right.
So Gussie, tell me, give us a little history about your life, your profession, what you've done, and why you want to run for Board of Education.
Sure, we'll do that. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. So I have been a Colchester resident for about 30 years. I have 3 children that went through the Colchester public schools, got great educations. I myself was a teacher in Colchester for about 35 years, and I was a special ed teacher. I've taught at all levels in Colchester, and then I went on and I got a leadership degree, and I went on to Wyndham as an educational leader, and I ended my career in Plainfield as a special ed supervisor. And so that's always been near and dear to my heart. I just want to give back because Colchester did such great things for my family and for me. I loved my job, and so again, I want to see what I can bring to the board as an educator. I think that piece is very important, to have somebody who's been on both sides and a parent too. So that's why I'm running. That is my background here, and I'm real excited. It's going to be
So
an
most
experience.
of your career was in special education. That's where you got your education. And I know Colchester, I think, is doing a pretty good job. I know lots of schools will send out special needs kids to other school systems, but Colchester is doing it in-house, right?
Right. Colchester's always had a very good special ed department, and we've serviced our kids very well. And it was known for that. I mean, people would move to town because of that. And I believe that continues.
Yep.
So,
okay. All right, Nancy, tell us about you.
Thank you for having us. All right. I have only lived in Colchester 5 years, moved in during COVID. And on Zoom, I met many people, and I just love Colchester. Lived in Lisbon most of my married life, raised my family there, taught in Lisbon. So just like Gussie, you teach in the same town, it's interesting. I had a lot of experience because my husband got ill and died very early. Oh. So I had to raise my children basically on my own. I saw what children go through in those kind of conditions. I had children who have had special needs help, dyslexia and so forth. But I have had such a wonderful time learning and teaching that I've really never given it up, even though I've retired. I volunteer all the time. I'm in the senior center. I try to do lots of things. It's my experience as a teacher. I was also, it was over 33 years, I became a math specialist, which that was through EastCon. Had to go for a couple of years to become a math specialist. So I started working in all the schools, pre-K through 8, all the grades. I go in and teach, I do all the ordering, I would have to go to workshops to make sure we were all doing the up-to-date things and so forth. And then I was also the test coordinator for the school system. So I was teaching at the end for the last 10 years, and I was doing these two other jobs.
So math is your thing.
Math is my thing. I
Okay.
love mathematics.
Okay.
During COVID, it was really interesting how so many children had a lot of trouble. For example, my grandson, he was given a class of freshman year of high school, given a class that he really was a little too high for him. He was given calculus first year. So he called me up and he said, well, what am I going to do? And so he and I actually would go back and forth on Zoom, and I would help him learn, and then he would go and do his homework. And at the end of that, he got a B. So
That's
I
great.
understand what the teachers went through and what the students went through.
Yeah,
that
it was tough.
It was
It's funny
tough.
because I taught a couple of my grandchildren in Massachusetts a
So
couple
you
hours
understand.
a day on Zoom also. That's what we
Yes.
were all doing during COVID.
We did
Yeah.
what we could. But
Yeah.
after, I've done a lot of volunteer work in Colchester. I'm on a couple commissions.
Yeah.
And I just want to do more.
Okay, so I'm going to give more information from your bios because you didn't highlight everything. So as we said about Gussie, 30 years resident in Colchester and more, 45 years in public education, special ed, and then education leadership in Wyndham and Plainfield. A bachelor's in special education and elementary at Boston College. A master's in reading education at the University of Hartford, 6-year course in educational leadership at UConn. That's like a MS plus type of thing.
Yes.
Okay. You initiated, designed, and implemented Colchester's first full day of kindergarten.
Oh, that was so much fun. We had a blast doing that.
Wow. How long ago was that?
Oh, you're going to ask me that.
Okay, a long time ago.
A long time
Long
ago.
Okay. Summer school coordinator, Colchester's first inclusive summer school. What do you mean by inclusive?
So before that summer school, it was just for kids with special needs. That was the first year we brought in peers.
Okay, everybody.
Everybody. That was great.
You were a member of the Colchester Budget Committee. You were on the interview committee and chair for teachers and administrators. You raised 3 children educated in the Colchester schools. Okay, great. Nancy, more about you. A retired math teacher, a specialist of over 30 years with grades K through 8. Okay. So you must have gone through all the different phases of how math is to be taught,
Yes,
right?
I did.
Did you figure out what the best way is?
There is no best way. That's where, some of the parents today, you'll hear them say, I just can't help my child. This new math really just gets me.
Yeah.
And of course, it really is not new math. Math does not change. What changes is offering lots of different ways to do the work, so that if one child can grasp it one way, not understand it for another child. So I would teach all kinds of different approaches, anything with manipulatives all the way up. One of the things I did, I was so interested, because just like in Colchester, Lisbon kept all the special needs kids in the classrooms. And when I went there and I realized that, I went back and I got extra graduate credits in special ed, so I could use that. And I found that most of those methods were fantastic with the mathematics.
Okay. You went to Eastern Connecticut University. You got your bachelor's in mathematics and education. You've been involved in the Colchester, Connecticut Senior Center as a substitute administrator and assistant, and that's a great place now that we've
Oh, it's
opened
wonderful.
the new senior center. Versailles, have to make sure not to say Versailles. Versailles United Methodist, very active in there in various committees. EMT Lisbon Volunteer Fire Department. Wow. And you were commission chair of CORE, which is an organization here in Colchester, and you were involved in the Coalition for Youth in Colchester. So both of you have your plates full in volunteer activities, and you're willing to give all the hours that it takes to tell us, what does, Gussie, so people know, when you're voting for a member of the Board of Education, what are you asking them to do once they get into office? What do you do?
So you're asking them to listen to the community, listen to the administrators and the staff, look at their desires, what they're asking the board to do as far as, or give them as far as money, and really work, again, to make sure that all our priorities are in line and we're working for those kids. Because bottom line, that's where we're going.
So what you have to do is you not just have to hire the superintendent and the personnel, you have to develop a budget. You have to take all the priorities into consideration, all the finances into consideration, and come up with a document that's going to do well for the children. Understanding you can't have everything.
Right, and there's only this much money.
Right.
It's a pot of money, and we have all these needs. So let's prioritize, and how do we decide what gets what?
Right.
And to work, again, with the board on doing that, with the board members.
And you work with it, then you present that to the Board of Finance, who makes the ultimate decision as to what budget they'll present to the town. And then eventually the citizens go out and vote in a referendum on the House, the budget for the town, which is separate from your budget. The Board of Education has two budgets, and your budget is greater than the
Yes.
is greater. And you guys are very active. What is wrong with the local electorate in Colchester, whereas at the referendum or in a local election in November coming up, we don't get even half of the registered voters? Why not? What do you think?
Well, when we go door knocking, the first question you will say to them, "Do you realize there's an election coming up?"
Right, and they say
and
no.
many of them go, "What election?"
Yeah.
You know, and so we have to explain to them what's going on. It's something like only 20% of the population come out. I don't know, because when I was a citizen, I really went out there. I think the right to vote is a privilege. It's a gift, and so I always went. So it's very hard for me to understand why they don't vote. But I think part of it is communication.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it used to be. We all used to pick up a newspaper; it would be right there.
Well, the problem is
we don't do that.
We have the River East, but that's a paper that covers a whole bunch of towns. There is no one place where you can get all your information in Colchester. There isn't a weekly newspaper. There was years ago when I first moved there, and I think that social scientists and political scientists will tell you that the loss of that local newspaper is hurting our democracy. So we have the internet and people, and I know our selectman does a great job on the internet and on Facebook, but not everybody is clicking
You have to look. You have to look for that.
Right.
And so I think people, you know, we all get busy with our lives, and life's running pretty well. So they're like,
Even though, isn't it ironic that we're all running out to vote for the presidential election, and even and then the governor's stuff, even less than that. But
local,
but your education, your street lights, your culture is right there in town, and those are the important decisions that help you in your life every day, and you're not voting for that.
Right, and have the biggest impact really on you.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just ask this question before we get to more specifics in your platform. The fact that you both have such extensive careers in education and saw from the inside how things work, and even though you would quote mostly just in the classroom, but you weren't, you did leadership things too. What extra benefit does that give you as an analyst to help you be a member of the Board of Education?
Well, I think, you know, experience is a very big part of everyone's education. I really think I loved talking to the parents when I was a teacher. I loved working with other teachers. Cooperation was something that I learned that really helped. I think the experience being in the building, people don't understand how hard the staff works, the entire staff, how hard they work for these children. They really do. They don't go into education because they want to get rich. And children are their mind, you know, that's their major thought all the time. And I think being in the school, I have experienced all that. I had my own children, my own building with me. I saw what they went through. I saw what their friends went through. I got to talk to parents. I was in the parents' homes. So I got so much knowledge
And
just
you
from
got to see all the
experience
different
of it.
learning styles and what issues were important as the years went on.
Right. It was just, I think it's something you can't get when you have not been in a building.
Okay, Gussie.
And I agree. I think you've seen it from the inside out, as you said, and you've seen the different levels. I've seen it on a leadership level, the community's input and the administration's input, and then balancing all of those pieces for the budget, for the needs. So I think that's what we'll bring, because we've seen that. We listen and we can say, yes, they really need that, but this might be a bigger priority, or we need to work through that.
So I'm going to go through some of the things on your platform that you've talked about. But before I do that, let me ask you, so a parent came up to you and said, Gussie and Nancy, what's the most important thing that you need to do for my child in the Colchester school system this year? What would you say? What are the needs that you feel is primary?
Well, that's a hard answer because there's so many.
Yeah,
but
I understand.
The child wants to, he wants or she wants to be there. If a child can't come in the door ready for education, they're going to have a hardship. So I always look at the child first. Has the child had breakfast? Is this child coming in emotional today? So my priority was always getting to know the family, getting to know the children, being able to really recognize what was going on with that child for that one day.
So how are you going to utilize that skill as a Board of Education member?
For example, I would have to do cafeteria duty, and you would walk around, and you have the children, because there are times when they can't get lunches, free lunch. Sometimes the schools were making the children pay all the time. They couldn't eat because they didn't have any money at all. So our cafeteria, we would talk to them, and the cafeteria would come up with an idea. Okay, we're going to make sure every child gets something to eat, and this is what we're going to do for them. So by seeing what the child's going through, then going to work with the other person, cooperate with them, we were able to come up with a lot of solutions. I mean, that's just one example.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is a bottom-up rather than a top-down thing. Okay, Gussie.
And just to go along with that again, to make sure that each child's needs are being met. If it's, first they've got to eat, right? And they've got to be emotionally ready to learn. And we have to look at what's going on and why they're not learning, if that's a problem, and what we need. What's at the bottom of that problem? How do we solve that? And again, who knows that better than the educators in that building, and the parents and the community. So that goes right along with what you said, Nancy. I agree.
So I'm going to look at the platform that when you're doing your walks, you're giving some handouts, and there are some issues that we want to talk about relating to what you're going to do when you get on the board. So again, we sort of talked about this, but each of you have another comment on it. Put students first with responsible budgeting with built-in accountability. Gussie, what does that mean?
Okay, so again, that's what we're all about. We're here to make sure that every child in Colchester gets the best education that they can. And how do we know? And so there's got to be some accountability. There's got to be some, these are their needs. This is, are they advancing? What are we using to make sure that they're learning? And I think that's it. There was one more piece to that, though.
Well, the budgeting piece.
Budgeting piece, of course. Again, as I said before, we only have that pool of money, but we need to make sure that it's going toward the students, that they are receiving the benefits.
Yeah. So how do you, when you're budgeting, how do you determine, this is such a tough question, that I mean, I could ask it to anybody in public life who has to be accountable to the people for the taxes they pay. How do you form the priorities? How do you decide that?
Oh, difficult question. And it's a difficult project.
Yeah.
I mean, the teachers, have to put in their requests. The principals put in their requests. It works its way up. So again, you starting at the bottom and you build it up. Then they have to look at it with the teachers and the entire staff, because we have a lot of paraprofessionals who are wonderful, and you got to include them all, the custodians, everyone. What is missing that we have to have because there are still pieces missing, so the children are not necessarily achieving what we want them to achieve. So we need to look at the whole picture, and then once they put in all their priorities, because they're in there, they know what's going on.
And as educators,
And then-
do you think you have this extra special handle on that in terms of figuring out what the needs
Yes.
are, Gussie?
I would say yes. We've been in those classrooms. We've been in those team meetings. We kind of have a, okay, so what's going on? I think we probably come pretty strong in that area.
Yeah. Okay, let me go on to the next one. Encourage transparent communication and collaboration between the Board of Education, school administrators, and the community. So how do you accomplish that?
Okay, so you listen, you hear what people have to say. We're learning a lot, door knocking on what people's views are. At those board meetings, you hear what people have to say. The people that come, hopefully the other people talk to you when you're out in the community, write letters so that you know what's going on. And when we're coming across with a new program that's going to cost money, that we are, as a board, very transparent. We have meetings about it. We have, again, it's in the papers, so people know this is why we're doing this. This is why this is a priority. And this is going to cost.
So you just kind of started the door knocking, right? And
I've been doing it for like a month.
yeah. So what are you learning? What are people telling you about education in Colchester that's going to be helpful to you or going to help you serve them better?
Yes, well, believe it or not, most of the places I have gone, they don't have too many children. But their first thing is they say to us, I always support education. My kids grown, they went through the system, we loved it. I always support it. So I might vote down the town budget, but I always vote for the school budget, which I thought was interesting because the school budget's so big. But the ones that had children, all were, they were very pleased with what they've had so far. Most of them had little children, they were in the primary grades, and they were very pleased with what they saw coming out communication-wise. They said that's one of the big things that they see the teachers are really working on, and the principals, so forth. They're really trying to make sure parents know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is one of the hardships, is the transparency. Because we really, in order to get budgets passed, they have to know. For example, because I was the head of the math department, I had to do all the math ordering. So before we could do that, I had to investigate what's really needed, what's the best programs. I mean, we used to start from scratch and try to figure it out. One of the things I worked with was getting math manipulatives into the classroom, because I always felt children touching things while they're learning quite often really gets the brain moving. Yeah. Well, they're very expensive. So we had to start little by little, but what we also had to do is we had to train the teachers. So then when they talked to the parents, they not only knew how to use these math programs, but they could communicate to them why we were doing what we were doing, because that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. But communication, transparency, it's hard. Got to be, we're still working on it.
Okay. How about you, Gussie? What are you hearing from people on your door knocking? And what are the best, so we talked about we don't have that local newspaper and articles every day about what's going on. What are the best means to get the word out? How are you going to foster that education, transparency, communication?
Yeah. Well, door knocking's been a really interesting and positive experience, I have to say. Most people are very open, and they voice their concerns, and they're very, they say, well, things are going well, and, we're happy with this. We're happy with the education. So those are always good things to hear. We're happy with the Democrats and with Bernie, and he's doing a great job. So that's been fabulous. They talk about the impact of that education budget on their taxes, and that's a concern for them. And we have less. Someone said to me, we have less children in our schools, and yet our the budget's much bigger. And I said, well, you know how that is. That's life. It's like expenses go up. So those kinds of things. But again, it's been a very positive experience. I think that, again, they see us out there, and that's a good thing.
Okay, so add the piece about the methods of communication and how you're going to get the word out.
Yeah. So again, I think the River East, again, it's not specifically for Colchester, but it's free and it goes to everyone. So that it is
Yeah.
free, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's free.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's that piece and writing in there, and again, Bernie does a great job with that. The letter to the editors, the River East does a good job with putting in things about Colchester. I think that board, that tag board in the center of town that talks about what's happening in town is great. I do think Facebook is a good way. I think a lot of people do go on there and look at that and what's happening in Colchester and even on our page, the Democratic page.
Just to add a little piece on it, a couple of the
Yeah.
parents I talked to
Right.
they were pleased. Every week newsletters come out from the schools,
Yeah.
and they were very pleased with that. The problem is, though, the parents are getting those, not everyone else is.
Yes.
And they don't necessarily go on the
Oh, it's not going to
sites.
every resident, it's going to the
Right.
parents.
Right, and
Right.
so they're getting the information, they're very happy with it.
Yeah.
But it's like when you talk to these other people, they really don't know exactly what's going on in the schools. And
Yeah.
so we need to be able to figure out how to get that communication over to them also.
Right, okay. Okay, another one of your platform issues is advocate for rigorous classroom instruction that challenges all students. Gussie, talk about that.
So again, instruction that reaches, and I, as a teacher, that's your job. You need to reach all of the children in your classroom, and you need to figure out how to do that with what we have. So from the support that you get from reading and special ed and those things, to the support that you give those kids that are very skilled and have a lot of abilities. So I think that's a piece of rigorous instruction. I also know that has to do that, again, the curriculum that you're given to instruct, you need time to go through that and figure out how to meet those needs.
So what input do Board of Education members have in the curriculum issues? Do they look at that?
They do. Starts with the teachers again. You know, you start down in the small building blocks, and they're the ones that really write the curriculum. It is, in the end, sent to the administration. They have to okay it. If you have a reading coordinator, they're very involved in it. It finally does get to the board, so they'll at least be able to see it, but that's more of the administration level where the curriculum comes in. The Board of Ed does get to okay it. One of the things I found, most teachers really want to meet all the kids' needs, but sometimes they need some really good professional development, and they need to keep that going.
Yeah.
Again, because if the teachers are aware of how they could do it, they're going to bring it in the classroom. I don't know too many teachers that don't want to reach every child.
Yeah, there are two big issues involved with what you are talking about now. One is students of equal levels in each classroom or of different academic levels in the same classroom, and then class size. Obviously, those two things can impact a lot. What do you say about that?
So again, I think that kids of all different levels have different pieces to add to that classroom. So I think that's very important. Now, they need the support. Teachers need that support to meet those needs. They need as you said, the professional development to learn how to meet those needs. They may need extra support in their classrooms to meet students' needs on all levels. Tell me the other piece, though. The second piece, I forgot
The
it.
size of the classroom,
The size.
obviously.
Oh, that's, again, that's huge. If you have the time to give, if you have 14 kids in your classroom, you have lots more time than if you have 28. And I know some of it is, guidelines, general guidelines on what's good, but and that smaller, I know some of the research says.
Well, do you feel that Colchester is meeting the guidelines for what an optimum size class is? That can best serve every kid in that classroom, or should class sizes be smaller, which might entail more money?
Right. Class sizes so far from what I've seen or heard from parents are not bad, but they are bigger than 14.
Yes.
So that's where the paraprofessionals come in for a big help in some of the classrooms. The special needs teachers can come in. You really need to have the support staff to be helping that teacher, because to reach every single child, I happen to be teaching at the end 8th grade for most of my years. I had them for 40 minutes and I was supposed to teach an entire math class. If I didn't have support staff to help me, it was hard to get around to every single child and see what was their problem that day. So you do rely on them. Teachers also learn many different ways of doing, with the larger classes, cooperative learning, grouping them differently, trying to reach out, how can they successfully get across to them without the help.
Okay, so now we're getting to the brunt of what's most important. How do you attract, support, retain, and value excellent teachers? Gussie.
So I think we're fortunate. We have a lot of colleges around us. I do think that going there, maybe internship programs, bringing people back into our schools, offering that kind of a program for them, offering education for them in our buildings after they come to us, and maybe they want to continue on into their masters. Again, we're in the middle of a lot of colleges, and we have that. Retaining them, I think we need to talk to them about what do you need, what do you want, and meet their needs professionally. Because if they're happy, they'll stay.
You have a comment on that?
Well, I think everything Gussie said was perfect. They do need to feel like they are important. Sometimes people forget that what the teacher does and how much they do. So you can attract them, and then you need to keep them by the professional development and making them feel like they're part of the entire whole. I happen to teach in a school system where we did have interns, and it was a fantastic program because you had these people who were coming into your classroom. Sometimes you had 2, 3, 4 people working with you for the entire year, and they were professionally trained. I mean, they were taking all their education classes on top of whatever they had done. Some of them had been working at Pfizer's as scientists, some really high-level jobs, and decided to go into education. By using them in the room, it was a wealth of information. And a lot of them stayed. They applied for jobs in our building, in our school system. They stayed. So, I mean, that's one way of doing it. And like you said, the colleges around here,
Yeah.
rich place to go. But to keep them, teachers need things just like everyone else. Child care, after school care, before school care, for their families.
Right.
So they need a decent salary, but they also need other needs to be able to stay there, just like with the nurses and doctors and so forth.
Yeah. How do we get back to when we were growing up and the teacher was on a pedestal? And when the teacher said something, your parents didn't run to school and counterbalance that and tell the teacher she was wrong,
Yeah.
right? How do we get back to where we respect? Do we need to have better education for teachers? Do we need to try to enlist the smartest and the best people in every field to be teachers? And how do we attract them when there are other fields where they can earn more money and maybe get more respect? Do you see that as an issue, as I do a little bit? Yes, so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So again, I think we support them. We believe in them. We have administrators who support them. And so if they come to an administrator, I think teachers are great at dealing on that basic level with parents, but we're all parents and we know that, sometimes you're like, it's your kids, so you're like, so again, I think parents need to be heard. I think teachers need to hear them, but they shouldn't be abused by them, and none of that should happen. And I think sometimes you need to call your administrator and say, this is happening, can you help me? And that administrator needs to step in, that's their job, and say to the parent, we can talk about this, but Mrs. blah, blah, blah is, a respected teacher. She did what she thought was right, and here is why. And, so they need that support from the administrators, and parents need to hear that from them.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
So the board has to hire the superintendent, and that's the person that sets the tone. Mm-hmm. So what's your ideal superintendent? What's the ideal leader for a school system?
Oh, well, someone that comes with a desire. Again, education, you don't go into it to get rich. So you have to have that wonderful desire inside of you that you want to be there for the children, for the community that you're in. Sometimes if teachers can go out into the community a little bit, maybe volunteer once in a while at a fair or something, where parents begin to realize that they're human beings, that they're trying to do the best for their children. So the communication part is a piece of it. The other part is seeing them. I think Colchester tries really hard. They have different, say, games going on, basketball games and stuff, where parents can come and be volunteering with things.
Yeah.
They have PTOs. They need to see that a teacher not only is the teacher in the classroom, but is a human being who wants to do wonderful, because teachers usually do. But the administration needs to support them. They need to have an administration that gets out there in the buildings themselves, so they're around seeing the teachers. So when a parent comes in to talk about a teacher, that the administrator is able to really say, hey, this is what your teacher's like.
Right. Do you have a comment on that?
I do. I have something. So, and again, someone who has a passion. Most educators are in education because they have a passion for it, and children, and that's what you need as a leader. That's what we need as a superintendent. Someone who is passionate about the kids, the staff, and the community.
Yeah. Well, what's coming through here in my talking to you two is you guys are passionate about education, about the needs of kids, and you want to do the right thing by them, and that's the most important thing in trying to hire somebody for the board who has those qualities. So let's go on to some of the. Okay, another thing is plan proactively for the maintenance of our school buildings and facilities. So now it's not just the education piece, but the environment is very important around.
Again, you need to make sure that the kids are comfortable, the teachers are comfortable, so that they can learn. You got to provide the best environment for learning, and that means, they can't be having leaks in the roof, or they can't be having learning in conditions that are so hot you can't think.
Right.
Yes.
Support the Bacon Academy Fields Project. I know that our selectmen are trying to really tell us about that.
Right. There is a committee that's been formed,
Right.
And they're studying carefully exactly what needs at Bacon. Also at the other schools, their playgrounds, because some of them are in need of help. They're also looking at all the other fields in the town, because our kids not only go to the Bacon Academy, but they use all the other fields.
Right.
And this committee is going to come back. That's the hope. They're going to come back to the Board of Ed and say, these are the things that are needed. This is what we recommend that it happens, and so forth. There is a big need. I mean, we have some problems. And one of the things that I feel is so important, once we get these needs taken care of, and we're working on it and figuring out how we can do it over a number of years, because I don't think we can do it all in a couple of years. How do you keep it up? Make sure that every year something is being done to keep these things where they are. I mean, our elementary buildings and our middle school and stuff, beautiful buildings, but we need to keep them up so we don't end up with the rain dripping and the teachers or the air conditioning goes. And that requires money, it requires planning, and luckily Colchester, I think, is doing the right thing by forming this committee to be able to come back with their expertise and be able to say, this is where we think we need to go.
Okay, so you're looking forward to being on the board and getting that report and doing something about it.
Yes.
Excellent, good. Promote early childhood education for all. Gussie, what do we have in Colchester now for the early childhood? How does that work?
So we have a preschool that is half day, I believe. I'm almost positive, and it's started for special ed children, and then there's a lottery for peers. But so that's not, we are not meeting the needs of all of our students because it's a lottery and there's a limited number of students involved in that. Again, the governor is really supporting early education, and so that will be something that hopefully we can expand in our programs.
Okay, so that's the other piece. You get funds, certain sharing funds from the state. I understand there's a problem with that Colchester was losing out, and that's all part of your thinking and budgeting process, right? When you have to do stuff.
I mean, considering what's going on right now, Connecticut's going to end up with more and more difficulty giving out the monies that they would like to give out to the towns. And yes, Colchester's ECS was cut. Right now, 2 years in a row, thankfully, it's going to stay the same, but it was cut. So therefore, we're not making that back up through the state. And from what we hear from rumors, there's going to be more cuts because the state's going to be cut. So we're going to have to really work hard to figure out how do we keep Colchester school systems wonderful? How do we keep moving forward to keep all the buildings and the fields going? And maybe looking at some financial, difficulties because of these cuts.
Yeah.
How do we go about getting it?
Yeah, we're living in a very unsettling time from the top down nationwide to the states, and it trickles down to the towns.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would really like to see, though, the preschool more, not just half-day one, but see if for anyone that wants to come. We do have some wonderful preschools in Colchester.
We do.
And we have the group C3 that really works hard with the schools, and they're trying hard to pick up where maybe the school can't offer it all the time. So there is, I can see that that's really growing.
Yeah.
Colchester's trying.
Yeah. Okay, encourage a curriculum that prepares all graduates to enter the 21st century workforce.
So again, not just college-bound kids or kids going to community colleges, but the trades and those kinds of programs. What can we do to prepare this? There's a lot of machinist kind of focus, and so hopefully we can provide some of that and connect.
And coordinate with some of the businesses and find what they need so there can be some kind of a match, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's important. I know there is the college track, but then there's an enormous opportunity for other kids to have great jobs coming out of high school.
Yeah. And we
with
live
training programs.
And a good area for that too, because there's much down in New London and here in Norwich, so that's important too.
Right.
One of the needs too is the
right, and then again, this is we're going. Probably we've already said it, but finally, strengthen partnerships between schools and the community. You guys, want to say anything else about that? I mean, pretty much addressed that.
Right, we have addressed it. I think there are some areas where we can improve. So we are getting out more of the information to all the people, not just the ones that have students in the schools. And it's difficult, but I think we need to work on that. We got to be transparent and get that communication out there.
And finally, manage resources with foresight and sound planning. So the Board of Education, do they have a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan? How do you organize for the present and looking into the future?
Well, I'm sure they have a 5-year plan because that's how school boards work. This is where we are, this is where we want to be, and what does that look like in the years coming up? So again, you've got to look at that. You've got to say, we're starting here. What do we need to do next year? What do we need to do the following year? And move forward with that.
Okay.
And all schools have to have a strategic plan where they, put things out. I worked on the strategic plan in Lisbon, and I've also worked lately on the senior center one. And of course, they need to keep up on that. You have to look every year, even though it might be a 5-year plan.
Right.
They got to look at every year to see, did we get to the stage we wanted to do? And if we did, great. If we didn't, how do we get there?
Yeah.
Right.
So that has to be updated all the time.
Right. And then just finally, one of the themes of the Bernie Dendler campaign for first selectman, you're on that ticket, is to bring Colchester together. We really had a rough couple of years where the town was not together. There was a lot of dissension, and that spilled over into some of the boards. How do you think you're going to be able to interact with another party? Sometimes on the local level, does it matter that you're a Democrat or a Republican? Talk about that.
I feel when you get elected and you're on a board, you're representing the town, the entire population. It doesn't matter if they belong to a political party or if they don't. You're representing what you need for your town. You need to really examine it. On the school board, same idea. You need to really know. Bernie, I think, has really done a wonderful job in starting that. And like he said, he says, I have a way to go. He has really done a wonderful job. But yes, you've got to remember, you're not a Democrat, you're not a Republican when you're on the board.
So true. You're a Board of Education member, and I think you work together for the goal, and it doesn't matter what your, your background is, really.
Right. But as a member of the Democratic Party, you do have certain principles. You have you're all coming in with a platform that you've united to bring forward to the people, and you want to try to fulfill that, right? At the same time, being collaborative and with your board members who are not of your party.
We're in the party because the reason we joined, we joined the parties because we do feel strongly towards the Democratic Party, and that they want to do a lot for the townspeople, and for the students, and anyone that works in the schools.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to give you each to summarize. What is it, hopefully, that you'll be looking forward to when you get elected and are on the Board of Education?
Okay, so I look forward to being a productive part of a board that works for kids and the community, again, to educate them all to the best of Colchester's ability. And I look to be a part of that.
Wonderful. Okay, and final word,
Well,
Nancy.
I'm still an educator. One of the things I love to do as an educator is to learn, to research. So I really hope that with our board, we could all work together. We could all study together, learn together, because I think we're all still learning. And because there's going to be quite a few new people on the board, we need to really be able to learn how to cooperate together. We're going to have to start at the bottom and really work on that. I think we all can be successful. Everyone I've talked to who's running really wants a good, a really good year and years to come. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
All right, great. Well, it's been great having you, Nancy Nelson, Gussie Gilberty. I wish you luck on the campaign trail, and that you learn a lot from the voters, and that the voters please come out on November 4th, Tuesday, election day. But you can also vote absentee, and there's also going to be early voting.
Correct. Starts October 20th.
On October 20th.
At the town hall.
Which is a Monday. You can start, I think it's a Monday, October 20th, yes.
Oh.
You can start to vote early voting.
Yes.
And take advantage of the fact that you have wonderful people running who want to help your schools and help the kids learn and learn more about it and become a more informed citizen and vote. And we'll see you next time on Talk Back. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.